Welcome back. This is the Dr. Beau Show. I'm Dr. Beau Beard, and this will be the cliffhanger episode of my health journey, which is number 6. It'll be a cliffhanger because this journey isn't over by a long shot, and there are still things to talk about, but still things to figure out, and I'll be updating that as I go through more of my process with Wild Health, which is an online functional medicine team. So I kind of wanted to get, I've jumped around the timeline of my life, and I've told the story. It's in my book as well, The Age of Movement, of how I broke my leg, and that was maybe a very early life incident that led to me thinking about my career choice. But I want to kind of talk about, well, what were the immediate steps leading up to me going to chiropractic school, and how each stage of each period of life added to my health journey and what I drew from that. So I went to undergraduate school at Southern Illinois University, which when my sister went there, which was 10 years before I did, it was rated one of the top 10 party schools in the country by Playboy magazine. Just a stat. You want every, kid of your own to pick a school based on that stat. It was not quite that way when I was there, but it was still a pretty good time. So a lot of my college was based around partying. I hate to say it. School was very easy for me. I hate to admit this now, but in undergrad, I started out pre-med because my sister worked for Novartis, which is a pharmaceutical company. And I saw, she made good money. It seemed like a very fitting career for me. And, I went and stayed with Alaska and her every summer and kind of just saw what she did. So I was like, hey, I can go pre-med, get the science background, throw some charisma and some sales acumen behind it, and you can make a lot of money. As I started going through that, I was like, I don't know if I want to stay pre-med, so I switched to business, and then business school for me was extremely easy. So I just had a lot of extra time, and in that extra time, obviously it was having a good time, but I got into, kind of a chasing adrenaline, a bit of an adrenaline junkie, joined the SIU skydiving team, which was there's some crazy stories there, but did some skydiving, was, doing cliff diving and all these, things that a young guy full of testosterone is probably going to do, which is not that abnormal. During this time, I also developed a very unhealthy relationship or love interest with a girl that I met. Honestly, I think I met her either the first day or the second day that I moved to Carbondale, Illinois. And we didn't start dating until about, a year later. And we dated all through undergrad, through cheating on each other, and just very unhealthy, but also not, I don't think, uncommon for college. But one thing that I did garner from that relationship was she was a recreation major, very into the outdoors, which I was too, but then it drew me further into things like rock climbing, and which I ended up teaching rock climbing at the SIU Rec Center on an indoor climbing wall, and did some outdoor top rope climbing and take my friends out and stuff like that. So it got me very much into that, and just more into the outdoors overall, because that was kind of in her vein. We shared that, and we did a lot of that stuff to the point where we traveled around the country doing some different stuff in Colorado and Alaska and things like that. But it was an unhealthy relationship, and that relationship followed me all the way through school and even after school. So I graduated in 2006. Health as a primary concern in undergraduate is not most people, in general, is not most people's concern, right? Because you're young, you can bounce back from anything. You may be punishing your liver. You just, you wake up and on Saturday morning and you're just like, whoo, you got to shake that one off. Wasn't a concern because I could just do whatever I wanted, and, you feel like Superman. Go jump off a 70-foot cliff after a bender and you'll be doing better. Well, I graduated in 2006, and two of my friends, one that I lived with in undergrad, moved to Tampa, Florida. And I kind of didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. If you are familiar with a marketing degree, in particular in the early 2000s, it was kind of like good luck figuring out what that means. So I moved to Florida, got my first job with a health insurance brokerage company, and hated the job, was doing inside sales, got much further into rock climbing, went to a rock climbing gym upwards of 4 days a week, was doing a lot of still indulging in, partying, probably taking a toll on my health, even though I wasn't feeling any ramifications, because I'm just, again, my resiliency was still extremely high. But there was another relationship thing. My girlfriend and I from undergrad had broken up during this period because she thought I was moving to Alaska and I was not, and she moved to Alaska. That split us up geographically and relationally. But during this time, another relationship thing, which if you look at Blue Zone health, the biggest factor, this is overall, this isn't just Blue Zones, but the biggest factor for longevity and a good health span versus just extended lifespan is actually upwards of 5 close friends that are not family members, right? So during this period, one of my best friend from high school was kind of floundering. He was a far better athlete than I was, had some back issues in high school, unbeknownst to us, was getting slightly addicted to painkillers, developed a drinking problem. Before he got out of high school, had 2 DUIs before he left high school, and would have went Division I in football, but because of that ended up in a Division III private school, which he quickly failed out of, and was just spiraling. So I offered for him to move down to Florida and stay with me, and I would be able to get him a job at my company because I had moved into a regional manager position at this point. So he came down, and I should have known that this was maybe not a good idea to try to stick this guy, round peg in a square hole type deal in an office job, because that didn't last at all. And when that, I got him a job, he moved down, and we kind of just said, hey, I'll give you a couple months, get on your feet, don't worry about rent and stuff. And then, stuff started going downhill, and, there's a lot of stories there, but it got to the point that, our relationship got fractured, and towards, I think I was in Tampa for a year and a half. And towards the end, I was basically like, I got to get out of Florida. Like, this is not a good scenario. Like, him and I were at odds. Lo and behold, the girl I dated in undergrad came back into my life. And she was at this point living in Telluride, Colorado, and makes a trip to Florida. We hook back up, and I end up, kind of making this on-the-fly decision, very whimsical decision in the eyes of my parents, because I had a fantastic job, especially for less than a year out of school at this, or maybe a little over a year out of school at this point. And they just think, oh, he's going to crush it and, retire at 55 and all this stuff, which is not me at all. So I quit this job and pack up my car. I drive back to Illinois, leave my car there, I drove to Telluride. So drive to Telluride, Colorado, and, just basically whatever fit in my car, that's all I took, because I needed a change. So again, there's a consistent theme here that, again, this doesn't seem like a major health thing to most people, but that relationships, a very not great relationship at all through college, just kind of followed me. And it honestly made probably my undergraduate time not what it should have been, now that I look back. But again, no regrets, learned lessons. So I moved to Telluride. A lot of interesting stories there. When I moved there, her boyfriend that she was dating was still living in the cabin that I was supposed to be living in. So I had to basically bum on a couch until he moved out of the house, which should have been another red flag. But, so moving to this cabin in the middle of the woods on a river, which is pretty idyllic. So there's a lot of idyllic scenarios for being in Telluride, Colorado that are overriding the warning signals going off in my brain of like, don't be doing this with this girl again. So I go to Telluride and end up again, just based on me being a highly motivated person, landing a couple really good jobs. I was assistant manager for a North Face store, and then eventually became the assistant marketing director for Telluride Ski Resort. So all things considered, in Telluride, Colorado, which is a town of less than 2,000, I had a really good job, especially for being a fresh out of college kid. And I skied over 120 days that year, which is amazing because skiing was part of my job. I led tours on the mountain and did these visits with ski clubs. But during this time, I had another best friend from my hometown that moved out with me, and there were my girlfriend, one of her friends, and then me and one of my friends rented this house. And it was just unhealthy all over the place, from partying to the relationships, and the relationship started to fracture between her and her friend, and not necessarily me and my friend at the time, but it just became kind of strained overall, to the point that more, infidelity within the relationship on her side, which is a crazy story. She ended up getting hit by a semi head on. And there was a lot of just like crazy things that were happening towards, I was there for about a year, and some really crazy stuff went down. And, I kind of have a warning signal that, like anybody does, that eventually goes off to the point that you're just like, something's got to change. And I just called my sister, who had recently went through a divorce, and I basically just said, hey, I know you're going through a tough time. Maybe it seems like there's a pattern of me running away. I'm like, I gotta get out of Florida, I gotta go to Colorado, but I just need resets. It's like, I'm gonna move to Alaska. And then I've talked about this on previous episodes, that moved to Alaska, got a job at a gold assaying and refining firm, and that was a very unhealthy environment overall. And that was the final catalyst, was being in that environment, to send me to chiropractic school on this path of like, hey, you've always been interested in this. You've seen the other side. Like, I lived the other side to the extreme. I will be the first to admit that I have like pushed the boundaries on seeking adrenaline and physical danger, drugs and alcohol, nothing ever to an extent that put me, I've had friends that, went to jail, that, became addicted. The friend, as sad as it is, the friend that I asked or allowed to move in with me in Florida to try to help him out. The last I heard, this is not the last I heard, he had a son probably about 4 years ago. And I got a call one night when I was in a restaurant in Washington, DC, and he's homeless. Like, he was living on the street and was asking me for money. And so I had seen the extreme of this, we're not saying disease health, but unhealthy relationships, unhealthy habits, not respecting what I had. And I knew that I needed a 180, and it was always in my purview that I needed to go over to this health side of things. So, I made that move. And when I went to chiropractic school, I was kind of a monk for the first year. Like, I was an hour away from my dad's house, and every weekend I knew that I didn't want to stick around, because I would just, end up, partying, which nobody goes crazy in chiro school, because it's a very health conscious group. But I would drive an hour north. My dad lives in the country, and spend my weekends, hanging out with my little brother, helping coach football, and, playing in the outdoors and riding dirt bikes and things like that. And I did that for the first 6 months, and lived in an apartment by myself. And, it's just running, lifting weights, eating really healthy, going to class. That's all I did. And that's all I wanted to do. And, slowly got integrated with other people, developed some great friendships, ended up getting some roommates, ended up meeting my wife, who now I'm in practice with, that we're both healthcare practitioners. So, this path has been paved, but now I find myself, possibly, and more than likely, maybe paying the price for not paying attention to my health for the better part of, 2 decades. Even though I say, I was never overweight. I never had a chronic illness. I never had any major injury other than that leg fracture when I was 10 years old. And you're like, well, you're not unhealthy, but health, or the lack thereof, doesn't have to be a visible or completely debilitating thing to be the worst thing that you could be doing for your health, right? So it's not easy to see on the surface if somebody is in an unhealthy relationship. It's not easy to see on the surface if somebody is, in a risk-seeking behavior, and why are they doing those things, and what are they trying to pacify or normalize within their lives through those behaviors. And that's what I was doing. I was basically just putting myself to the burner, right? Or testing myself a lot of different ways, both from like how I fit in with the people around me, how I fit into society overall, and then, what in the heck am I supposed to be doing on this planet? Like, what's my MO? What's my passion? What's my directive? And I still honestly, I wouldn't say I struggle with it, but I'm always asking that question of like, what am I ultimately, like, why am I here? Not just like, why am I here? What's the meaning of life? Like, why am I here? What is my directive? What am I the best at? What's my gift? What can I share? And I do think that I don't think I've hit that fully. First of all, which is a big reason why I do things like this, so I can explore, talk to other people, have conversations about things that I've had experiences with. So it opens up doors for others, open up ideas for myself. Even, thinking about what I did in the past can change things that I'm going to do in the future. Just as I talk about in the clinic, like we need time to, review, reflect, ruminate, and kind of think like, well, am I in a repeating process of things that are keeping me in a holding pattern, or did I have successes in the past that I've fallen away from? And that's kind of where I'm at on the health side of things now is, now I'm in this phase of life. I'm approaching 40, 2 years away. I know it doesn't look like it, right? Approaching 40, health is paramount because it's what I'm preaching every day. I want to be able to push my body as hard as I can. And I would say, I was just about ready to say, I want to push my body as hard and as long as I can. I'm not in the same mindset of this longevity game that I'm here to, I've called it plastic wrap health. I'm not here to live as long as I can. I don't want to die tomorrow, and I don't want to be riddled with chronic disease in the last 20 years of life, but I don't want to, as the idiom would say, I'm that guy that wants to slide into home base, all torn up, body used as it should be, because I think that's why we're here. Like this is your body is a vessel to accomplish tasks, and it's not something to be maintained pristine. It's also not something to be disrespected and not cared for. So, if you have an off-road truck, if you don't take it off-road every once in a while, like, well, why'd you buy it in the first place? So use your body for what it's meant to be used for, and the only person that can define that use is you. So like I said, this is going to be a cliffhanger episode that, I have more data to talk about in terms of what's going on with my health, some of the things that are changing within our family. So I'm going to do an update a little further out. I've done these 6 episodes over the course of the last few months. I have a follow-up with Wild Health, which we're going to explore some more blood work, look at some changes I've made, changes that those are possibly going to have on lab markers and how I'm feeling and symptomatology and things like that. And just kind of be, dropping things in on this my health journey. And that's the whole purpose of it being a journey, is there's no destination here. There is no ability to get to pristine health, because as soon as you get there, you have to maintain it, right? So it's a continual journey. And I do realize that this seems like a narcissistic act of talking about myself on a lot of this stuff, but I want people to realize that the only reason I'm talking about my life is that if somebody has been in a similar scenario, can glean something from my mistakes or, things that I've done that I possibly shouldn't have, or that I should have known better, or I didn't know any better, now I do, that, maybe you don't have to walk down that same path to learn the same lesson. Well, then I've kind of done my job. So if you ever have any questions about, health in general, let me know, because one of the other big announcements here at the farm, which is the practice that I run here in Birmingham, is in addition to the chiropractic and rehabilitation services that we offer, we're going to be starting a functional healthcare side of things. So we have our health coach, Shannon Speakman, and me heading up as the physician overseeing, and then hopefully bringing on a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant down the road, or possibly even an MD, to take on a functional healthcare model, because we're seeing a major need for it in Birmingham. We have some great funk med docs, but there's just not enough. And, hopefully we can service as many people as we can, however that's going to look, because that's still in developmental phases, but that is coming. And I'm excited to kind of announce that. So be on the lookout. That'll be through the farm. And as always, you can, just like this video, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram at Dr. Beau Beard. And I, as always, appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.